All right, Rachel, we're going to take a look at each stroke, and at some point I'll compare them to your prior, strokes from before. It's going to get a little clunky when I get there because of syncing up tapes, and they're not exactly the same speed. But anyway, just taking a look at the butterfly. I just want you to understand this. I'm dealing with a product that makes it look a little grainy, especially when I do this process. So you have the clear tape. When you look at the clear tape, it'll be a lot easier. But the main thing with the fly is that there's some rhythm to what you're doing, some rhythm to the stroke. But you still, I haven't looked at your prior, I've just looked at this one, so commenting on this one. But you're still not setting the anchor position up the right way. And it's real important because I think you're strong enough now to do it, and you got to get better at doing it. But when you set this anchor position up, and I'll show you this tape in a little bit, but you really want to be more about where you're putting your hands when you climb out of the pool. And I know it takes a strength issue when you do that, and when you're not strong enough to do that, you tend to want to go out wider. But right now, this is a breaststroke, so you can see you're basically pushing down in order to push the head up, and that the gait's really going off in a horizontal way, in a horizontal direction. So you can see the hands basically just pushing straight down, and that's pushing your head up. And you can see really you're pushing your head up so high, you end up in this really straight up and down position, and that doesn't work because that shape's traveling through water, and it doesn't travel through through water really well. So a couple things that I think can help is just get a little flatter with your undulation. Don't let it go too up and down. Set the anchor positions a little differently, and I'm going to show you how much you lose because this is a non-breath stroke. And you start out, so right here everything looks mint. It really looks really good, but then those elbows just collapse inside you and you let everything go. Now everything, even though this is a non-breath stroke, you're still sort of pushing down, or you're sliding your hands down, which again just puts you in a position where you lose that water. So now from the initial point where you grab water to hold on water, you held water really well, so you held your leverage point really well, but now you've released it, and you've released it, I'm guessing about 18 inches. It's too much for your age and your ability level. So this is something that needs to be improved. So I'm just going to show you this video, and again, take a look at the anchor position, where the elbows are relative to the hands as she sets up that anchor position, and then basically again see where the pressure is and how she's applying this pressure. Very different. And then just basically vaulting and driving herself away from that pressure position. So this is where the bubbles, where the entry is, and when the hands, let's say when all the way around, when the hands enter again, the bubbles are way back around her feet. So she's gone a full body length on one cycle basically. Whereas if I come back to your tape, and if we do the same thing, where we just get it forward a little, so we'll take this one. Now that's a breaststroke. Let's take this one. It's a non-breaststroke. So we're going to look at your bubbles. You can see where they are. So you've lost again about, here's the front edge of your bubbles right here. So you've lost about the length of your leg to your feet, and so you can take a look at that, and then you give you a relative amount of distance that you're looking at. But I think this is really fixable, to be honest with you, because if you just focus on how you establish your anchor position, rhythm skull to impulse, or just skull to impulse, don't even do rhythm skull, just put a kickboard between your legs, and then just work on the pattern. So don't start out and do it too hard. Just work on, again, a pattern where you set up this anchor position, and again your head would be approximately right in here. This would be just outside your shoulders, and that's essentially exactly where you need to be. And just trace it, kind of feel it, and then start working with how effective you are at propelling yourself on with it. Okay, I've got them sort of synced up, and like I say, this might get a little clunky, but this is current. This is what I just took. The below section is what I took 2 years ago. That's what we taped 2 years ago, just so you know in comparison. So we're basically looking at yourself 2 years ago. Essentially, really the main difference, and just looking at this is that you're setting your anchor position up better, but it's still weak and it can get better. So if I back up again to the front, the two main things here, you're diving down really deep, and that's going to cause problems for you. That's going to put you in a much weakened position. You're a lot smaller when you did that. You just again, the main thing is you flattened out your undulation. You don't have that kind of like resistance, but you still, when you take that breath, you still have that sort of resistance. So let me just. Alright, so I backed it up a little more. Sorry, it's just these things just tend to be cumbersome. So here's the top is, and again, just really looking at two strokes, way different, way better butterfly, much more controlled, a little more professional, not nearly as much drag. You can see again, I talked about what you need to improve as far as your anchor position. You can just see the difference in just the shape, and you're just not getting through the water nearly as well when you're younger, which obviously is, that makes sense to me. So that's the difference. You can just see the basic differences between where you were a year ago. You're not really breathing down below. I stopped and went looking for a breaststroke that I could compare, but you just basically swam across the pool with no breath. But obviously clearly better, much better rhythm, and you're very close to being very good at what you're doing with regard to your anchor position, but it still has some improvement. And I feel like when you get to that level of improvement, it will put you in a position where, let me get you out of this. So it'll put you back to. So just looking at the last pass, everything's pretty good, but that little jerk right there, that little jerk right there, that's just because you're not holding the water, and that point where your hands slip and they don't hold the water very well, that's where the jerk comes from, that little hitch comes from. And if you take that hitch out, I think this is going to flow and be really good for you. So holding on the water is the main issue.